It's that time of the season already. Playoffs. Only 2 weeks left in the regular season, and things are heating up. Teams still scrounging for their playoff spots. Teams looking to secure their playoff spots. And a lot of teams are going to be fighting this week. Some will get in, some will be eliminated. But who knows? I'm ready to find out who's going to make the postseason. I know you guys are too. Shall we get started? I think so. Hello, Steeler Nation! Welcome to another episode of Steelcast, a podcast where you don't have to be a Steelers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Zach. It's playoffs. We're getting closer and closer to the playoffs. Attack! And today, we're going to be breaking down the 2023 Week 17 NFL schedule. Let's get this thing rolling. Last week, I went 10-6, putting me at 153 and 87 on the season, I'm pretty sure. And only 2 weeks left. Things are getting crazy here in the NFL. And let's start with the final Thursday night game. And things are getting crazy. Because you got the New York Jets taking on the Cleveland Browns. The Jets, they've already been eliminated, but they got the job done against the Commanders last week in a game that was kind of ugly, to be honest. The worst passing offense going up against the worst passing defense. And it was a really close game. It should not have been that close. One of those two teams should have blown the other out of the water, but that did not happen. And then the Browns also got a win last week, going up against what was it? The Houston Texans. And Joe Flacco throwing over the 3 games he started for the Browns, throwing over 300 yards each game. And I think he's found a new home. People were giving up on Joe Flacco. They're like, he's old. He doesn't have his arm anymore. He's proving otherwise. And Browns have already secured themselves a playoff spot. However, they still are in contention for that first seed, but the Ravens need to be swept these last 2 games. I do have the Browns winning this game, only because they're going up against the Jets, and I don't know if Joe Flacco will throw for 300 yards this game, but because that Jets defense is pretty solid, but they should still win anyway. It's going to be a big defensive brawl that I think Cleveland will win. And then the Saturday game. You have the Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And let's take a moment to congratulate Detroit for the first time in franchise history. They have clinched and won the NFC North. And they deserve it. It was 30 years since their last division title. But they weren't even named the Detroit Lions at that point. And they've been rebuilding since they became a franchise. And this is by far the best squad they've had since the Detroit Lions became a franchise. You could argue that Barry Sanders era was like the best Detroit era because they almost went to the Super Bowl one time. However, that doesn't really make me feel better. With Detroit fans, anyways, because they didn't, clinch and win the division any of those times. And most times they were having negative records. They only ever had 2 winning seasons with Barry Sanders. So, and now they have finally clinched the division, won the NFC North for the first time in franchise history, and they're excited. They're excited. They beat the Vikings last week to do it, and everyone in Detroit's finally happy for their new regime. And the Dallas Cowboys kept it close against the Dolphins, but gave up a game-winning field goal at the end. But Dallas is undefeated this season at home. Detroit is still going to be vying for that second seed. However, I do have Dallas winning this football game. They're undefeated at home this season. And personally, I don't see that changing, especially since the Detroit defense is still kind of weak and young. So, Dallas, you get the win. But Lions, congratulations. And then the Sunday games. First off, you got the New England Patriots taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, almost charging it to the Chargers, but then Josh Allen in the fourth quarter remembered who he was playing and who he was, and they ended up winning that football game. And then the Patriots, Bill Belichick probably destroyed their tank because they got a win last week against the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos were making mistake after mistake, and the Patriots kept taking advantage of that. But I don't know if they're going to be able to get Caleb Williams or Drew May with that extra win, because there are a lot of 4-win teams. So even though they only won one more game than the Cardinals, I don't know if they have the third seed or not. The third draft pick or not. Because if they do, they can still get Drew May. But if they don't, and some of these other teams end up winning, or they win another game, they're screwed. Because if they win another game, they're screwed. They're not getting either one of those two guys. But unless like some of these other 4-win teams win games, they might not have a chance. They will have a better chance than they currently do. So they really, really just need to just start tanking. Like now. And just stop winning games. And I'm sure the Buffalo Bills will beat the pants off of them. It's being played in Buffalo. So Bills, you should get the win. Emphasis on should. And clinch a playoff spot. Then you have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Chicago Bears. Both of these teams are no longer in postseason contention, so they're just tanking at this rate. They're just it's a tank bowl is what it is. The Falcons beating the Indianapolis Colts, potentially destroying their playoff hopes, and Taylor Heineke looking real good. And then you had the Chicago Bears also getting a win against the Arizona Cardinals in another tank bowl. But the Cardinals are now just, at this rate, just ready for the draft. They're ready for April. They're ready for March. They want the season to be over. The Chicago Bears still have the first overall pick because the Panthers, they suck. So I'm probably gonna pick the Chicago Bears to win this one. It's being played in Chicago, and they have a resurging defense. And Arthur Smith is not doing a very good job at play calling. So Bears, you get the win in a tank bowl, and you have fun with that. And then, next game, the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Raiders getting a Christmas miracle win against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. And since Josh McDaniels has been fired, the Raiders have been looking like a whole new team. Putting 63 on the Chargers, getting Brandon Staley fired, and then this. Whew, impressive. Going up against the Indianapolis Colts, who didn't do so hot against the Falcons. Not sure why. But the Colts not really being talked about a whole lot in the media. Colts fans are like, we're winning games, though. We should be getting talked about. And now you understand why. Because you can't beat the bad teams. The Raiders are resurging. I do have the Colts winning this game. But don't be surprised if Vegas pulls something out. Because they're still vying, most of these teams are still vying for a playoff spot. And the winner of this game could very well take the 7th seed. So, Colts, you should win. But are you going to is a completely different story. Next up, you have the LA Rams taking on the New York Giants. The Rams. They have a really, really crazy team. They're rebuilding, but Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams, Matthew Stafford, a resurging offense, plus an Aaron Donald on the defense. Are you kidding me? Beating the New Orleans Saints, a team that is still also kind of rebuilding, but they had hopes for the season with Derek Carr, and those hopes have been utterly destroyed. And the Giants, well, they've been eliminated from postseason contention. Tyrod Taylor has been deemed the starter for this week, but honestly, I don't think it'll make much of a difference. The Rams should win this game because that offense is lethal. And Rams, assuming they win, could very well clinch a playoff spot. So, we'll see. And then, you have the Battle of the Birds. You have the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cardinals, we talked about them already, just waiting for the season to be over. And the Eagles now have the AFC East back, but they're still fighting for that 1st seed and potentially that 2nd seed. So they really want to win out. Eagles should win this game, and the Eagles gonna fly. Then you have the New Orleans Saints taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a battle for the NFC South. Whoever wins this game will more than likely clinch that division. Because the other 2 teams are not great, and of course all the other games next week are division games. So basically whoever wins this game wins the South. And there's nothing more to it. The Saints, we were just talking about them not doing so hot this season, losing to the LA Rams on Thursday night, having a little bit of a rest this week, thankfully for them, as they're going to go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield working his Baker magic and leading the Bucs to a postseason push. I do have the Buccaneers winning this game, mainly just because I have more faith in that team as a whole, and Baker's been playing pretty well this season. So, Bucs, you get the win. And we'll see what you do from there. Then you have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Washington Commanders. The 49ers, in the battle of the number 1 teams last week, losing to the Baltimore Ravens. 5 interceptions on the day for that Ravens defense. 4 of them by Brock Purdy, 2 of them not even his fault, really, as they were just great plays by the defense. But yeah, the Ravens were all over Brock Purdy that entire game. They kept it close for a little while, but that little while lasted, as it sounds, only a little while, and the Ravens pulled ahead and blew them out. So, And then the Commanders, well, they lost to the Jets. At this rate, they're just waiting for the season to be over, too. We still don't know if they're going to keep around Sam Howell for the remainder of the season. I am going to pick the 49ers to win this game and get a little bit of a bounce back. And 49ers, see you in the postseason. Then you have the Battle of the Kitties. You have the Carolina Panthers taking on the Glitter Kitties and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Panthers. Bryce Young had his best game last week. playing against the Joe Barry Packers defense. You know, the defense that Baker Mayfield got a perfect passer rating on. That's how bad it is. And they still ended up losing that game. Oh. Bryce Young looking at that first overall pick they all knew he could be. And I'm sure they were thinking about the Packers every week, even though they lost. Then the Jacksonville Jaguars, still in control of their own destiny. Still hanging on to that division lead, but only by like half a game. And they really, really, really need to win this game because all the other teams in their division could very well lose again this week. So a win for them would basically cement a division win. And against the worst team in football right now, they should be able to beat the Panthers even with an injured Trevor Lawrence. So Jaguars, you should, emphasis on should, get the win and get that division clinched. So do it, please. Then you have the battle for the first seed in the AFC and the game of the week. You have the Miami Dolphins taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens we just talked about beating the 49ers and in quite defensive fashion. And then you have the Miami Dolphins beating a 500 team. I think the first time all season. The Ravens are playing at home. They just beat the 49ers. And unfortunately, I do have the Ravens winning this game. I hope the Dolphins win. I really do. I really hope the Dolphins win and take over that first seed. But the Ravens are on a little bit of a hot streak right now, and I don't really see them losing this week to the Dolphins. They're just a high-power team, and I don't really see anyone slowing them down right now. So Ravens, you should get the win. But Dolphins, if you can, please win. I'll even make a deal with Blood Demon for you. Then you have the Tennessee Titans taking on the Houston Texans. The Titans. Keeping it close with the Seahawks, but not able to get it done. Derrick Henry having a passing touchdown. Ryan Tannehill coming back from injury was pretty good to say the least. Then you have the Houston Texans, and the Texans are just really hoping that C.J. Stroud comes back from injury so they can make a postseason push. Because if not, they either have to deal with Case Keenum or Davis Mills, and I know they don't want to do either. I do have the Texans winning this game, though, on faith that C.J. Stroud does come back. But even if he doesn't, I don't know if they'll be able to contain King Henry, but they should be able to contain all the other parts of that Titan offense, and that should be just enough to win them the game. So Texans, you win, but hope and pray that C.J. Stroud comes back. And then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Steelers, Mason Rudolph saving Christmas and the Steelers winning record season last week by blowing out the Kitty Goes Meow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And then the Seahawks keeping it close but still winning against the Tennessee Titans. And the Seahawks are just finding ways to win games. And just when you thought both of these teams' seasons were over, stuff like this happens. Both are 8-7, looking to cement a playoff spot. Of course, I'm going to be a homer and pick the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game. Mason Rudolph has been deemed the starter this week, and if the Steelers' offense can look the same as it did against the Bengals, Steelers got a Super Bowl. Then you have the LA Chargers taking on the Denver Broncos in the battle of the AFC West. The Chargers already been eliminated from postseason contention, but they looked a lot better with the firing of Brandon Staley, and the Chargers are looking like a whole new team. And the Broncos, well, they were on the ride, and the ride never ends, losing to the New England Patriots. I do have the Broncos winning here, but only because their postseason hopes are still alive, so I know they're going to be fighting for that postseason push. So Broncos, you get the win, but can you stay on the ride? And then, a game that should be good, but it won't because Joe Burrow won't be playing, you have the Kitty Goes Meow Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Both teams taking L's last week, the Bengals to the Steelers, and Jake Browning giving the gift that keeps on giving, 3 interceptions. And then the Kansas City Chiefs losing a heartbreaker on Christmas to the Raiders. So Joe Burrow won't be playing, probably not for the remainder of the season. And the Chiefs, they need to win this game to clinch their division. And I think they're going to. So I do have the Chiefs winning this game. I think that even Patrick Mahomes on a rough day, because he probably still could have beaten the Raiders, going up against a little bit of a weaker defense in the Bengals, should be able to get the job done. So because of that, Chiefs win and clinch AFC West. And then, Sunday Night Football, the final game, because there's no more Monday night games for the remainder of the season. You have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Whoever loses this game will be eliminated from postseason contention. So, basically it's which team doesn't want to get eliminated. The Packers, last week, barely squeaking out a win against the Carolina Panthers and a team they really should have just blown out the water. But Joe Barry's Joe Barry. The defense has to struggle every single game. And then the Minnesota Vikings, well, they're just praying by a thread that they can even make the postseason. But even if they don't, winning this game is all that really matters to them at this rate because, well, let's be honest. Losing to the Lions and having to play them again next week, definitely not a good thing because, well, they were supposed to keep the Lions from winning the North. It was supposed to be their division, but without Kirk Cousins behind that center, things go south relatively quickly, although they did keep it close against the Lions. However, they're going up against the Joe Barry defense. I assume Nick Mullins or Josh Dobbs, whoever's behind that center, will have themselves a day. So I am going to pick the Vikings to get the win here. And Packers, Jordan Love is number 3 on passing touchdowns. So you might have your guy, but you're not making the postseason this year. Sorry. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you have winning these games this week? And where are you in terms of win-losses and your pick 'em? Let me know. Do you agree with these do you agree with my predictions this week? And if not, which ones do you not agree with? Just curious. And let me know. I am your host. My name is Zach Attack, and as always, you're in Steelcast country.